All right, when he took oath of office, he promised to hit the ground running, but until now, President Bola Tinubu is yet to form his cabinet. The inauguration of the Federal Executive Council will shed light on the direction of President Tinubu's administration. For many Nigerians anxiously waiting, the quality of nominees who make it to the president's list hold the ace in its hope agenda for new hope agenda for Nigeria to become reality. Now, with the time frame almost at its end, Nigerians say that the constitution window does not make provision for the vacuum that will be created if the president fails to send the list to the National Assembly before the expiration of the deadline. That's the crux of our talk next. So joining us in the studio is a convener, Good Governance Group, Dr. John Ekundayo. It's nice to have you join us this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Welcome.
See you again, sir.
Thank you, Kevin.
Great. All right, now, a lot of Nigerians are expecting, there's a certain kind of expectations Nigerians have in what names, caliber people will constitute Tinubu's cabinet. And as it is, they constantly use the word quality, competence, merit, technocrats. They use all of those things. So I wonder, when you listen, I know you must have heard a whole lot of that, but when they use the word quality, for instance, I wonder what you think will constitute the kind of quality that might make Nigerians satisfied with the names they see by the time the names are unveiled.
Let me say, well, talking about quality, let me come from the premise of, the president, you talk about the president, hitting the ground running. You see, so Nigerians expect changes. Now, in the technocrat language, reforms. Now, the drivers of the reforms are these men. Because the president's eyes cannot be in every place. He's not the Almighty. So that's why when you talk about quality, these men and women, because we have to be gender sensitive now, these men and women are the eyes of the president. Not just the eyes of the president, they are the eyes of the government. Now, we just witnessed something that happened in the court yesterday, which is condemnable anyway, because you have institutions of government. You see, and there are ways that things can be done. Now, when you have the drivers there who are credible, who are competent, to man these agencies, these MDAs, then the president will be able to rest and think on other things. So that's why for me, when you talk about quality, we really need to look at who can drive this reform, who can think in the language of the president with the Renew Hope agenda, in tandem with the Renew Hope agenda, not just, to just mouth the mantra, but actually in actualizing the mantra, so that moving from the place of activities, because we have seen activities in time past leading us to no result, from activities to input, now to output that people can see, and then to outcome that people can feel the impact. To me, you will be talking about quality in this.
Dr. Ekundayo, well, looking at this much-awaited ministerial list, speculations are increasing as to what names will be included. People looking at the nature of visitors that the president has been receiving since his inauguration have also spoken to the fact that perhaps we're going to see something unprecedented in terms of appointments across party lines. Of course, we know how it's been over the years, customarily that the party would obviously have the ruling party, the governing party will have a majority and perhaps other interests, but definitely not across party lines. But do you also share the sentiments that we might just be seeing something like that this time around? And is it a path you would advise the president to take?
Okay, let me start from actually the point you just mentioned about the president receiving all manners of people in Aso Rock. Well, with his antecedent in Lagos State, and over the years, President Bola Tinubu is a strategic leader, and is somebody that loves to just interface, interrogate, that loves with people. So that may not really influence his decision in the ministerial list. And for me, taking this time because I thought this list will come out maybe 3 weeks, even 1 month back, by the way it started. You see, but for him taking this last minute, it was to be at the book public presentation of the Senate leader yesterday, Senator Bamidele Okoyemi, but he just had to make a phone call and say, well, please excuse me, and banning all visitors within 48 hours left. Now, you see, I believe that the list that Nigerians are expecting, now, to many, it will shock many people. You see, because for me, let me just say it on this program, that, you see, at the back of certain reforms, Mike, you were asking me about quality. You see, at the back of certain reforms, especially certain core, cogent, critical areas of his government, I know he will want to put technocrats there from his antecedent. I know there are people he have met in the corporate service when he was serving, even as politician, but that he knows that even though they may be politicians, but have cognate expertise, experience, in certain areas that he will want to drive. But then there must be a balance, because the party also work for his emergence, to become president. So I believe that's why, at the last minute, because we had last week, the list have been submitted, and all kinds of things on the social media. Oh, maybe certain names were removed, some names, But I believe taking this time is to ensure that T's are crossed and I's are dotted. So at the end of the day, really, I believe that there will be a kind of, shock. Then there are some that, politicians cannot but come in. But where I'm going to look at, Kemi, is, what portfolios are actually attached to names. You see, this time around, I want the president to even do something that we have not been seen before. Submit the names and let us see the portfolios before the screening. That I will advocate.
In fact, some Nigerians had even lent credence to this as well, making suggestions that the president should be able to submit the names with their portfolios, so that when they face the National Assembly for screening, you are screened, you're asked questions relating to your area of proposed assignment, as the case may be. So, well, we'll wait to see how that could pan out if the president decides to do things differently, like you say. But let's talk about even the key ministries that you were talking about. Now, Nigerians, there are some ministries that, in fact, they use the word juicy.
There's no
Others use the word strategic. Others say very important ministry, and all of that. But all ministries are ministries. But however, maybe because of the assignments that some of them do that touch on, say, infrastructure or some other strategic areas,
petroleum,
like education and health, petroleum and finance, whatever the thing is, some see it as more juicy than others. But speak to us from the areas that you think the president should be very, very intentional about, especially when you're talking about ministries and his New Hope agenda.
Education ministry is key. Right now that, the country went through a kind of, ASU strike, last year, and we could not just go that route again. You see, but thank God the president has already assented to the, what's it called, the student loan, whatever. So we are going to see reform, but you need driver there in the education ministry. Petroleum is another area. For me, I'm still surprised that Mr. President has not done anything, tangible in that area about reform. That's the way I look at it. So I don't know whether he may want to follow the route of some other president and be the petroleum minister. But I don't know. But we need somebody there. Then, as president, will he be able to, combine other things he's going to do in office, as well as managing the petroleum industry? Because it's a gamut. It's a gamut. You are talking about the refineries. You are talking about, subsidiaries of NNPC. The whole ministry itself. So it's a key thing. So when you talk about the petroleum ministry, for instance, now, so when you talk about finance, we are using about 90-something% of our revenue to service debt, not even to pay the main debt. And right where we are now, we are talking about subsidy withdrawal. Well, thank God the revenues are coming. But then you need somebody, that will be able to also bake more bread, make things available, because we are running the presidential system of government. I look at people saying, oh, National Assembly is costly, this and that is costly. The presidential system of government is costly.
It's
you see,
expensive.
and you cannot just with a stroke of pen in a day say, well, change this, change that. No, it takes a process. The whole process can even be in this particular administration 4 years. So are we going to be facing that? So we need to look at the reality on ground and for the government to bake more bread. So in the finance ministry, what about the planning, economic planning? So there are a lot of other things that, other areas. Infrastructure is key. We still have our infrastructure, Ministerial Works, housing. We have housing deficit, and we have not even been seeing the federal government playing key roles more in the states, in building more housing in the state. We have been having a lot of this thing in that area, and yet we have housing deficit. So they are really, really, for me, and then you talk about some ministry being juicy. Now, for me, on a serious note, it depends on the assignment you have and the way you sit at top of your agency. There are some people that didn't even head ministry, in time past, Mike. And look at somebody like El-Rufai. He was just in the Bureau of Public Enterprise, but suddenly the name came up. It came up that time. And from there, he became a minister. How about people like Obiese Kosili? Was called Madam Due Process.
Due process.
I mean, just credible, just right on that seat. From there was made a minister. So for me, whatever assignment you are given, just make sure that you sit on top and you can effect some reforms that will touch the life of Nigerians.
We won't forget Dora Akunyili too.
Yes, Dora Akunyili too. Is it like that? So there are some and one thing with Dora Akunyili, somebody was telling me, did not change any of the staffs he met there. He just used those staffs there and just let them know, look, she just used them and said, look, this is the way. Are you ready to go? If you are not ready to go with me, I just drop you on the wayside. And everybody started running. Just like you have the present man in JAM now, doing as well, Professor Ishaq Oloede. So it depends on, imagine JAM. Before, how much would they remit to government?
No one
but now billions now.
Make money.
Yeah, so we need people like that will come up and sit at top of these agencies, MDAs, and say, well, this is the way I want it to go. And that is why our president must not miss it.
We also see Buba Mara in the NDLA, people like that and so on. But anyway, we wait to see how it turns out. Let's go on a short break before we continue. All right. 48 hours. In 48 hours, the president is compelled by law, by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Section 42, to ensure that the list of ministers, his cabinet, be sent to the National Assembly so that Nigerians can have a feel of what the thing is, and the National Assembly will do the needful of screening whatever names. Recall that there was a report that the names have been sent to the DSS, for background check of all of these people. Who are they? What are their antecedents? Do they have any baggage? And so on. All that has been done, but Nigerians are waiting as to who are these people? What will the names be? And will the president meet the deadline? These are questions. We have the convener of Good Governance Group, Dr. John Ekundayo, with us in the studio, helping us to make sense of all of these issues as we get along. Yeah, Kemi.
Right. Thanks, Mike. And, Doctor, but what sense are you even getting from the wait? Of course, it's still within time, though analysts differ as to, the threshold. Should we have to wait this long? You've also spoken in that direction. But what sense are you getting into, why we are yet to see the list, especially when you look at the roles of states, because speculation has also arisen as to the input not just of the party but of governors. Even the former president is also being condemned by his kinsmen as to pushing for a particular individual. When you look at the pressure that the president has is under in this list, vis-a-vis his power to fire at any time if you don't deliver. How do you weigh in on this?
I believe this is part of, to me, I perceive it, this is a personal opinion, that this must have informed, the kind of delay, seeming delay, in this list arriving at the Senate, because you see, like I said, with the president hitting the ground running, some decisions being made, this list is supposed to have come out some like 3 weeks, 1 month back. You see, but another thing, it could be part of the political permutation. Permit me to say this, so that if it's arriving, at just because Thursday, after Thursday, another working day you have is Friday, and then you have Saturday, which is 29, which is, it's like, I believe the president is putting finishing touches here and there, dotting the I's, crossing the T's. You see, and political pressures, you cannot rule it out. From all over the states, and look at the constitutional provisions. All these have to be satisfied, you see. And there are people that have contributed. Not just the governors. You see, I've been close to some of these politicians. At times, there are some things that you don't see. That you don't see, I and you, analysts, we don't see. You see, but they will tell them, look, if you do this, you are entering into a problem. People around the president, around the governors, at times. If you do this, you'll be in problem because this happened. You see, some people even are already accusing, let me not just say it now. You see, about maybe certain sections are favored, certain states are favored. I just want to paraphrase that. And they're already, even within the president purview, constituency, So there's the need now to balance, political permutation, technocrats, his friends. He has his own friends, that are also capable, like that. Families, don't forget, these are precious and has to be balanced together in the national outlook. And it's looking at the end of the day, what will people say about this list? So I think these are some of the things that inform all this. And it's like, by the time the list is submitted, well, what will happen is, in case the Senate is saying, well, we drop this name, that's why you can have another name coming. It's like you are playing a game of football, within, I think you can make about 3 changes, Mike,
Yeah,
like that. You have to get it right. You see, because once these things are submitted, and maybe we don't know the kind of screening the Senate will go for this time around, maybe there will be some that will be dropped. And I remember during the time of former President Olusegun Obasanjo, I remember a particular candidate had to be presented thrice before it was finally clear. I don't want to mention his name on here now. So we don't know the scenario that could play out in this kind of thing. So that is why he has to get things right, dotting the I's and crossing the T's. So definitely the president is under pressure. And for him saying, well, I don't want to see any more visitors for the next 48 hours.
So he can focus and concentrate.
And concentrate, because and there are some other things that some of us we don't know. Yeah. You see, there are some people that are meeting the president. They are not meeting him alone when you see them. There are some things they do. I remember, a particular top politician in this country, as I said, well, I don't want to see all these people. I don't even know what they are using to see me. I don't want to see them. These are some of the things you won't read, you won't know about. You see, there are some people that, yes, they go with certain things like that, even though people don't believe in that. But it is true. So there are certain times that you need just to be alone and reflect, and think, maybe now call some of your people and say, well, in confidence, this is what and there are some of them that will still oppose you and say, well, I don't agree with that. But then at least you let them know that you're in a caucus to just carry them along and say, well, this thing it's a private conversation, it should just die there. You see, but at least you get a kind of a feeler. That's one thing in leadership. You need to get it, at least from your main team, those who are around you. If there are maybe 5 or so, if you can get maybe some positive signal, green light, that about 3 out of 5, then you can say, okay, well, or even 4 out of 5, well, it's good to go. So I think those are kind of things that the president will be musing about right now.
All right. Now, they recall that since the days of former President Olusegun Obasanjo until now, every president that comes in sometimes tend to tinker with the ministries. We had the Ministry of National Planning under Goodluck Jonathan. In Buhari's time, there was no Ministry of National Planning. There was the issue of, in the first time, there was the issue of Ministry of Power, works and housing together. Then in the second, decided to dismantle it, and so on. Then created the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, and so on. Then we have the Ministry of Information and Culture and Tourism. Now, there is the issue of, okay, tourism is an issue altogether. Can we separate it? Ministry of Information should even become Ministry of Communication, and so on. Now, are you expecting, what kind of tinkering are you looking at with Tinubu trying to ensure that, well, these nomenclatures, or the name of this should be changed to this, or this should be separated from that, and so on?
Yeah, I can say this confidently, that there will be changes in that. You see, remember, I still go back to Lagos State, when Tinubu came in to Lagos State as governor, and, there were certain agencies, like Ministry of Women Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. It was Obasanjo's, it was Tinubu's time in Lagos. And then, you talk about even ministry where I served before I retired, Ministry of Economic Planning and Budget. It used to be one parastatal like that before. You see, we have economy. In fact, Tinubu was one of those governors that started economic planning and budget. Another state had to copy that. You see, a lot of reforms came in. World Bank had to come in. We had monitor and evaluation. Iteto before, nothing like that. Projects are just done, they are bad done, like that. But with Tinubu coming, with monitoring evaluation, the department where I serve, you see things, you can't just do any project in Lagos State, you'll be monitored, you'll be tracked. Another state had to copy that. So I believe there will be some things that will come along that. And with this pressure too, you see, that people want to belong, okay, fine, even though some people are saying, well, trim down the number of ministries because of the economy, because of this. For me, let me just say it here, because in less 48 hours, we'll see all this, or even less. It won't happen. There are some agencies that we have to, be split one way or the other. And for me, it will allow for performance. You see, like one person was saying, former Minister of State in the last district, is it Kayama now, saying that Minister of State should be abolished.
That is illegal.
I supported it, because when you look at that, we don't really see the reflexes of some people in leadership. You see, because the minister there is look at the senior minister, and therefore no distance. So I believe there will be a lot of creations of MDAs, ministries that will come out under President Tinubu, that Nigerians, at the end of the day, will be happy for, because we see them coming out with leadership, positive reflexes that will impact the lives of average Nigerians.
But even if, the president decides to retain the offices of the ministers of states, for example, how can they work together? Because if you recall the arguments of the senior advocate of Nigeria, Festus Keyamo, he was like, the successes of, the ministry, like you also said, the senior minister the junior minister would be judged on the successes of the senior minister. But in a way to make more impact, between both the senior and the junior, after all, their work is cut out. How do we enhance it?
Yeah,
as a final take.
Okay. Now, let me just say this. During the time of President Obasanjo, former President Obasanjo, one thing happened. You see, we still have Minister of State. You see, but they have certain purview, mandates, which were adhered to. You see, in the time of President Buhari, former President Buhari, it was not. So it was like the main minister just grabbed the whole thing, and then the Minister of State is when they want them to breathe or talk, they will talk, which ought not to be so. So if there are clear mandates that, okay, for instance, in transportation, this is what is under the Minister of State, this is what you can do, and it's clear. I believe that it could still work. But personally, I would prefer a kind of, abolishing that Minister of State kind of thing, and let the minister be the minister, so that we know you are in charge. Because for those of us who have been in public service before, the political head, you can't have two political heads in the ministry. You have only one, and you have to, and he has the final. You have to report to him or her, and he or she has the final say.
Okay.